Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 3 o'clock Central Texas time, and we are back with the directors of the Highest of Stakes movie. This is incredible, folks. I'm really excited. We've been looking for some good news, and we got some good news across the crypto market, but to me, this is one of the greatest things. We've been anticipating this just like we've anticipated the Pulse Chain launch. And so I'm really thankful to have this opportunity. I want to say a special shout out to Kinetics. Appreciate you so much for all that you do and for connecting us, because this is meaningful to me. I think storytelling is so important. It's one of the most powerful mediums to be able to communicate, because people let down their guard, right? They let you in, they let you take you on a journey. And the guys we're going to be talking to, they are the masterminds behind this, the storytellers themselves. And so I'm really excited for this to be a thing. So let's just kick it off. We've got the co-directors of the Highest of Stakes movie. We've got Grant Peele and Patrick Moreau. What's up, guys?
Howdy.
Howdy. It's so good to have you guys here, and I just appreciate you taking the time out to do this. When we found out there was going to be these theatrical releases, it felt like this is a big deal, right? And of course, I'm kind of an old guy, and I love going to see a film in the theater. Tell us about this. Regal Theaters, you got this deal, what, 28 to 30 markets now? Tell us about it.
We started at 25. We're up to, Caitlin said over 40 now. So, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think it was, we've been trying to figure out the best way to get this in front of the most people possible. And we were sitting down, we were filming with RG for the Pulse Chain launch. And I think Grant was like, we got to figure out theaters. I think that was the moment we're sitting down and he's like that is the way this needs to be experienced. And it's so hard being a documentary. But we were, the little engine that could, in terms of pitching all the big brands. And what is wild is Regal said, we don't normally do documentaries and we are going to pass on y'all. The trailer was so good. And y'all were so hungry. You kept following up, you kept going at it. And so here we are. We were able to get it done. And then because of the demand, we're up to 40 cities nationwide.
Wow, that's incredible. And of course, I like this idea that there's a little bit of scarcity to it, right? It's not in my city. I really want to see it. I think that FOMO actually creates some additional demand. Grant, tell me about, your thoughts on how this does build that demand, because this is just the beginning, right? You're showing and proving that it's not just the product, although the product is the thing people see, but this community is a big part of the differentiation on this film, I would think.
Yeah, I would say that that's absolutely true. And I think that, as filmmakers and as big as this story is, so it is larger than life in so many ways. There was a part of me that always felt like my heart was broken that people were going to be watching it on their devices, or that they would be just watching it in their living rooms. And I think that there's an intimacy to that now. There's it's a part of our, the lexicon of daily life. And so people are familiar with that. And so they want that level of convenience. But I think there's something to the idea that, this film seen in a theater on a 25-foot screen is so significantly different than watching it in any other way. And I've seen it on my phone, I've seen it on the laptop, I've seen it on the home, television, and now seeing it in the theater. And it really excites me that that's how this is getting introduced. And it really excites me that we're unique, that we're a bit of a unicorn in that we are among the very few of documentaries that get released in theatrically before they get seen through a streaming service. And so I wear that with a badge of honor right now. And I think that that's the real opportunity, is that the distribution is as newsworthy, or has a newsworthiness to it. I wouldn't equate it, but I would say it has a newsworthiness to it in the same way that the story does. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned on Rags' stream, which was awesome, that there was that you're essentially bending a genre. You think about what documentary films kind of have been in the past. This seems way more exciting than your typical documentary. Tell us, was that intentional? Was that really driven by this bigger, larger than life character of Richard Hart? What drove that kind of to bend that genre, if you will?
I mean, as the lead cinematographer on the film, and something that Grant and I have always been huge proponents of, is like, you want to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
So when we talk about bending the genre, what we really mean is Hollywood level visuals, which are traditionally reserved for actors blocking multiple takes, yet in real life, right? So now you've got to modify real life scenarios like Richard's, room where he streams, not to the level that it becomes uncomfortable because there's so many people. And you've got to use a psychological lens to predict their behavior, to be there before it happens. The classic Gretzky, know where the puck's going, not where it is, right? And so like we are students of that, trying to understand a character to know where they're going to be. And then we're there with the right lens, the right tool, the right whatever, to get some of these. I mean, Mikey and Rami in the trailer going all in, like, that's not scripted, folks. Like, that really happened. We really filmed that in real time. There's no, can you do that again? Can you move here? Like, that is life. But it feels so big when you watch it and compare that to a normal documentary, right? That's the genre bending that we're going for. That level of storytelling, cinematography, quality, and emotion that you typically don't see.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people understand that essentially you do all this work ahead of time in hopes that one of these happy accidents, happens, right? You're intentional about it, but in a way, it seems like some of the most special moments in these type of films are things that almost surprise you. Do you look forward to that? The things that kind of like, you didn't plan on it, but it happened and it was such a special moment. Can you describe that process?
We'll take it when it happens.
Yeah.
But in truth, we get really kind of pissed if we haven't already in some level anticipated what's about to happen, because we are genuine in our desire to want to have anticipated what's going to happen, and being intentional about knowing, that predictability as it relates to things. So yes, of course, it's fantastic when it happens. We love it. And there are moments like that kind of take your breath away. That one moment that I can speak to specifically is and you've seen this in the trailer. There's a moment where Richard is having a conversation with Dr. Kelly Pope and Dr. Lamont, and they're across the table from one another, and Patrick had to remove himself from the room because of the things that were being said, because it was just like.
Well, she had gotten Tylenol in the middle of that conversation. Right. The language and the jargon, and like Richard and Lamont going, she actually was like, can you? And so we brought her in Tylenol, and I was losing my shit, because it's like, Richard, it's 2-on-1, right? Crypto professor and one of the world's best scam investigators taking him on in Spain. And like, it was hilarious, in a way that all of us would love. But yeah, I had to remove myself from the room, and she needed Tylenol because her head was hurting because of the jargon.
Wow. That's the cool thing too. And I think I like to see that with Richard as well. As sometimes it's he doesn't give in. He doesn't back down, and boy, is he smart. Well, let me back up and ask you this question. You guys have been working together for a long time. And of course, when you've been doing this kind of work and creating such quality films that you guys have, I know that there's this special connection that you, Patrick, and Grant have together. Tell us about, you talked about being cinematographer. Patrick, tell us about your co-directors, but you're obviously playing to each other's strengths. What are those? How does this work between you two as it relates to making films?
I would say that Grant and I are pretty untraditional in probably how most co-directors would work together and that we focus on the goal and we will both do whatever needs to be done to like get there, whether that's solving a problem, whether that's moving a light, whether that's grabbing a camera, whether, you know, whatever that is. We are very much just about coming up with creative solutions of how we get it done. And, you know, Caitlin's not here. She's the lead producer, but it's the three of us and we consider ourselves the Navy SEALs. Like we talk about ourselves as the SEALs. And so, you know, we're in Tallinn, Estonia, and we get an interview with Richard and we're going to do it. We've got to find a location that is big enough for a king inside of 4 hours in a foreign country. That's the kind of shit we love, where we sit down, we're like, okay, here, who do we know? Where can we go? Who can we call? You know, and like that interview ends up being in the movie. But like we just work together really well to focus on the goal and to not worry about hierarchy or traditional roles or anything else. And we focus on consensus. Best idea wins. And we appreciate differing. Like appreciate different ideas to get to a better answer, as opposed to like, well, you know, that kind of thing. Grant, what do you think?
I agree. I also think that, you know, I identified well over a decade ago the work that Patrick was doing online and felt compelled to find a way to get to work with him. And felt very fortunate that, you know, I was able to kind of maneuver my way into opportunity after opportunity and prove myself from a coffee getter to you know, doing something more than that. Because Patrick is unquestionably the most talented creative that I've ever met or worked with. And so, you know, while the titles say co-directors, I kind of always felt as though I'm a little bit Robin to his Batman. And I willingly accept that role and opportunity to say, hey, you know, we're together in this, and I will do everything that I can to lean into your level of talent and expertise in order to make this piece really shine. So,
well, that's very sweet of you. Crypto Heartbeat, can I there's one thing I'd love to add to the anticipation thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Because it's easy to see the result, the film, the trailer, the clips, and not get what goes into it. Do you know who has the highest free throw shooting percentage in the NBA of all time?
I don't.
Steve Nash. He was at about high 97s and low 98s. Now, in studying, you know, because I will study the world's top performance in all different fields, Steve Nash got the highest free throw shooting percentage. That's insane. To like do the same thing and hit 98 out of 100. Pre-visualization. It was his secret to success. He would see and feel everything, you know, that would happen. And we do that for scenes. Like we will walk in and we will pre-visualize like where Richard's going to sit and what might happen and what might go and where that's going to be and where we'll be and like really work through it. And there's a level of hitting the gym and putting in the time that quite frankly, most people won't do. They want to show up and take it as it happens and go, oh, just do that for me again, or make something average, right? But like we are really sitting down and like working through every kind of possibility and trying to predict and be in that perfect spot. Cause like that is the playoffs to us.
Yeah.
Like when that moment comes to you right in front of your lens and it's just, you know, like you'll see in the movie, those moments that you're almost like, how is that real? Like, how are you there? And it looks like that and it's all happening and like you're inches away.
Wow. Well, it sounds like to me, you know, seeing that the access that filmmakers like you guys have to quality equipment, you know, it's one thing to have the right tools. It's another thing to use them. I'll bet you, I would assume that this is likely your greatest work to date. Tell me about the firsts in this film, because I have a feeling there's some things you may not have done before that you did on this film. I'm assuming maybe there's some things in helicopters and such, but are there some firsts for you guys in this film like you hadn't done before?
I'll share the helicopter story and then Grant, you can take it from there. Sure. We were in France and it was one of our last productions and sat down and we kind of do a stand down and we did it with Richard. And we're like, hey, let's just talk about, you know, our highlight in making this movie and like that kind of thing, right? And go and we just take a moment to share. Not a Richard Hart kind of thing, but he you know was willing to do it for us. He goes out of the entire movie making process. He's like, when we did Chopper to Chopper, you took the doors off and you were literally hanging out the side, and I could see the cold, I could see the pain, and you were doing it. You were leaning into it to get the shot. And it's wild that like out of the entire thing, that's what stood out. But to him, it was how far we were willing to push to get the kind of visuals and get the kind of story. And so, yeah. I mean, when I couldn't get a chase chopper with a nose-mounted camera inside 48 hours in Iceland, I was like, fine, take the doors off. They're like, story? I'm like, take the doors off. I'm belted in. Like, I'm good. And that's the kind of stuff. So that the Russian arm, which is the thing hanging off the car where we followed the different supercars, those are first for us. They are not at all for Hollywood, but like that is not documentary.
No, and that's the point. I think that's what makes it so unique, and it fits. It feels like it fits Richard Hart. Certainly, you guys have definitely been sensitive to that. I wanted to ask you this. And I also wanted to show the trailer for folks as well. But let me ask you this. This is you talk a lot about in your education that you provide, but also the commentary that I've watched from you, how important character is. And I want to know, what was that kind of moment, that original moment of, somebody was badgering you, and there's always a reason somebody wants to pitch you a story. Did people, were they pitching you, you've got to meet this Richard Hart guy? How did that happen? What was the origin of connecting with Richard?
Grant, why don't you share the experience and the call?
Yeah. So I guess, Patrick and I have always been looking for the next new original story that we were going to take our, invest years of our life in. And as a result of that, you think of it a bit like mining for gold. You're going to go through a lot of stuff before you ever find or discover anything that, is kind of surfacing to the top and is worthy of time and attention. And so as a result of that, it's really easy to develop the filter of just no. Like, other people are always approaching you with stuff, and it's like, come on, man. Like, we all have well-intentioned friends and family members who, either over Thanksgiving dinner think that they have found the most remarkable story that you've ever heard. And they, my mom comes to mind, who tells me these things. And you're like, you're so well-intentioned. However, you know what I mean? Like, we appreciate it. And so, we have a friend who is a part of the filmmaking community. But
shout out Quattro.
Yeah, also a part of this community, and who kept saying, like, there's really something here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a space that was so unknown to us, and we were so distracted by other work that we just kept saying no, putting it off. And finally, we were like, okay, let's take a look at the link that was sent. And the link that was sent was Richard in a top hat speaking on how one can give a better apology. And you're going, this is the guy? Like, this is your guy? But okay, fine. So, we continued to kind of, just pour through some of the links or whatever, and then eventually agreed to, let's have a conversation. Yeah. And that conversation required downloading encrypted, telecommunications and all of that kind of stuff. Patrick and I taking time out of our individual vacations in order to have this conversation. And then we met or virtually met online, Richard, and had this half-hour conversation with him. And in doing so, we were transparent about what it is that we're doing. And one of the first things you said was like, "Are you guys any good?" We're like, "Well."
And this is 10 seconds into the call.
That sounds like Richard.
Right? Oh, for sure.
Because
we're used to people who've, you know what I mean? They research you before they get on the call. The dude is, one, are you any good? So like we knew going into the call, we had enough wherewithal to know, like, be bold, confident, and direct, right? So it's like, well, here's why we think we are. Okay, what do you got? Send me something. We're like, okay, well, no, now. I'm like Googling, finding, and I know his attention span. So I'm like, I need the tightest thing. So send him the trailer to our previous film, which features, high energy founders. So I'm like, okay, he's going to get it. Entrepreneurial, right? It's something he'd care about. And he's live narrating his feedback as he's watching it on the phone, on the call. He makes it 30, 40 seconds in. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'd change this and this, but like, yeah, you guys are good. Okay. And then like, we proceed with like, okay, we passed probably 90 seconds in, and that's all he had for us.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, here's something I think is really, I'm curious about. You're making films, right? There's a commercial enterprise in filmmaking in some respects, and you're not doing it for free. You're lucky guys, in my opinion, because you get to do this kind of work. But also, you always get contacted by somebody who they have an intention in mind, right? They want to likely promote something. And there are obviously documentary films like someone at end of life who really wants to have some sort of memoir, but this is different. And because it's tied to crypto, I think it's kind of a delicate balance, right? You've got people who are saying, hey, I want to make this so that I can pump my bags, right? And everybody in this community is like, man, we need this thing to go. And of course, the community is going to come around it because what do they see? They see some benefit for them. There's obviously a balance though that you had to go through when it comes to, hey, we're not like promotion for hire. We're filmmakers and storytellers. Tell us about that kind of duality and what that's like, because you probably had to walk that fine line many times.
Yeah, well, I mean, to level set, it's important that we all get that you could raise however much money you wanted and make a pro hex film, and it's a promotional piece. It's a commercial. Right. And right. You're going to pay for placement everywhere, and you're going to pay to get somebody to watch it, and then you're going to try and pay to get them to do anything, right? And like, that is not the game that we are in. But like, get that if you don't have an unbiased or a balanced kind of look at something, then that is inherently commercial. And like, you're not talking about theaters, you're not talking about a documentary. So like, we knew going into this how passionate the Hexagon community is, and so that we had to match that with another side, right? With another viewpoint. And we had interviewed a whole bunch of people in and outside of crypto. And ultimately what Grant and I really wanted was somebody who didn't have a deep understanding of crypto, because that's our audience. We want our audience to not, like, we're not trying to get this in front of people who already know everything about crypto. So if we want to bring this to people, we cannot have conversations where, like, if you watch the Eric Wall and Richard Hart debate that we filmed, most people don't understand half the things they're saying if you're not in crypto. So we knew that couldn't be the movie. So we found a scam investigator, a fraud investigator who knew nothing of crypto, but was so deep in the financial world, top selling class and outlier on forensic accounting. Right. Yeah. And she's willing to go on the ride. Now the audience can identify with her. She's asking the questions the audience wants to ask, but they feel a little silly about. And the conversation is something that they get, but you're getting that perspective, right? You're getting somebody now to arm her so that it's not fraud investigator with no crypto knowledge against somebody that some would say is a crypto genius. She then brings along her sidekick, the crypto professor, who teaches at a top university here. And like, he does a ton of consulting and is very good and advises very large government organizations. So now you've got a team. You got a crypto professor and the fraud investigator, and they're going to investigate and come back with, what do they think about this thing?
Awesome. Let's watch the trailer here, and then I've got some questions specifically about the trailer and some of the choices there, and kind of get your opinion on that. So let's watch this together.
Okay, we are set for you, Richard. What do you want people to know about you?
I got a big dick. This here is $3.1 million of watches. I own the world's biggest diamond. You don't. I do.
Who is Richard Hart? Genius.
Legendary.
Arrogant. Bit of a narcissist.
The benevolent king.
$250,000. Hate me. I'm farther than you'll ever be in your whole life.
Who does this guy think he is?
Whatever the governments have been doing, it's not worked out. You've never had worse interest rates. Your money has never been worth less. Everything is getting worse. The only thing that's making it better is cryptocurrency.
It's better than the dollar. It's better than gold. It's better money.
Crypto is money without governments, and it is money without banks.
You're not going to meet another product like this as long as you live. Yes, every scammer in the world is going to tell you something similar.
Good morning, everyone. Are you ready to look for some fraud this morning?
They are promising 40% annual percentage return.
I want to make people millionaires. I've made thousands of millionaires.
Richard Hart's HEX token is a brilliant scam.
Desperation has a look to it. And when you're looking for just anything, you will fall for anything.
HEX is going to be the new cryptocurrency. We'll take over the market. There isn't anything else out there that's worth a shit.
Everything I have worked for all of my life is staked in HEX.
Good. I put it all in.
All in what?
All of our house money.
Why is it important to you?
I want to feel loved. Don't you guys want to feel loved? Everyone wants to feel loved, right?
Richard is the Messiah.
Savior.
God.
That sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
That you're incentivizing people to pull money off the market.
You know what? I think you just described a 401k.
If the music stops, they're sitting on nothing. X doesn't make money. That's where I'm so frustrated. What is the value?
This is benefits. Do you want to get rich?
No, I don't think that it's a scheme. Because I trust Richard Hart.
It seems like some of this is just a large performance art project. And if ultimately this is all a big performance art project, people are going to get fucked.
I mean, you can fool a couple people, but I mean, can you fool that many?
So then I should trust you.
Listen, I think you should trust me, but if you get into the habit of trusting people like me, you get the crap scammed out of you.
Man, I don't care who made that movie. I want to see that film. Like just watching it as an audience, I'm like, I want to see that story.
Well, the music is fantastic. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. What's the story behind the music? Because that is really well done. I mean, it works so well with it.
Grant had a 20th wedding anniversary in Serengeti, and we made a film for him and his wife at Four Seasons. And I had worked with a composer who sold music online, but her music was so good that I sent her Grant's film of his anniversary, right? I'm like, you got to see, like, it's so powerful. I want you to see this. And so we chatted, and I had a call. It's like, next thing we do that fits, like, I want to work with you because you were so talented. 4 months later, we're doing this thing, and I send, the link to Grant, and I'm like, so remember your film, like, her style is perfect. Like, we need to secure her as the composer. So she was on board, and such a perfect style. But then, because of the support of the Hexaking community, we're able to do live orchestration, which I know, Grant, has been one of your dreams.
Oh, I mean, the behind the scenes pieces that you've watched of all of the blockbusters where they're doing live orchestration and they're playing to the frame of the movie. Come on now. Come on.
You even got to conduct for a minute. I know it's for fun. You did get to conduct a 40-piece orchestra, did you not?
I did get to, they forced me to, kind of like karaoke, right? Where like all of a sudden you're like, but man, that was a cool moment getting to, they're playing to a click track because it has to be exactly to the moment, to the frame. So yes, you're conducting, but you're also just kind of, waving your arms and encouraging them.
Oh, but man, chilling. It's in an old church, 40-piece orchestra. There's a violin that's just crying in the middle. And like Big K was there with us. And like you would get goosebumps just sitting in the room. And the picture's this big, like the movie, right? But feeling, it was, and like that's what we want to translate into cinemas. Like that, very few people get it home, right? But like you get a taste of that when you go in the theater. You feel those 40-piece orchestra like come to life with, all the other layers.
Yeah, you hear it in the chest, right? You hear it in the chest.
Oh yeah, that's what you want to feel.
Different.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's obvious why it bends the genre. Obviously, this is exciting. So I'm going to put something up on the screen. One of the things that, I've always heard about storytelling is every story is about a man who wants something, but in the process of going out to get that thing, he discovers something greater. And always these stories have a redemptive theme, and many of the great stories that we love do. And what I wanted to kind of share with you, and I want your commentary on this, because this is interesting, because the nature of this film falls into an interesting time in Richard's life. And, I followed him prior to this outrage marketing, which we see a lot of in the film. And I want your response or reaction to this tweet. I'll put it up on the screen. So Richard says, the movie is coming to theaters next month, and the me you see in it died, replaced by humble me. Stay humble. What's your reaction to that? What does that mean to you?
Grant, you want to tackle that first? I mean, I think that Richard is a highly intelligent person who knows that there are a lot of people following him, and he is willing to shift methods when something no longer seems to be effective. And I think we have to remember the number of people that are following him and how calculated his decisions are. And so we have not spent time in person since, this metamorphosis, so to speak. But I do know that a lot of it is, very calculated. And when we had dialogue and debates with him over outrage marketing, like it was very calculated. Did he enjoy dropping millions in 5 minutes at his store? Yeah, I mean, I think he did. Like being there with him, I think he enjoyed that actual part of it. But he also enjoyed, the other side of it, and it was very calculated. He had very good arguments. Is how I saw it.
Well, one of the things that
agreed. I think that what's interesting is the reaction that the Hexagon community has had to the shift and change as well. Because I think it's gone recognized. I think that you could ask this question without having read Richard's tweet, right? Like there's a recognition that something has shifted and something has changed. And interestingly enough, I think that, the one thing that we haven't heard from Richard is the why.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this story. And the reason I kind of start that with redemption is there's something really interesting to me that potentially is something for the future. And I'd love for you to speak about this. It seems like this story has more to it, meaning, this is the outrage marketing. We're getting people's attention. But one of the things I've always appreciated about Richard is when he is not on offense or playing defense, he's extremely genuine and really an advocate for people. He talks about the glory, he talks about wanting to be loved and those type of things. But what I see in him is someone who advocates for people not getting wrecked. He actually does care about people. And so it seemed many times to me when I first came in that this was a very dissonant thing, right? Unboxing and in marketing and all that. And so to have this new Richard, is there any plans? I mean, could you see a follow-up series to this work or continuation of this story as it continues? Because we got a lot ahead of us with Pulse Chain and all of that.
I mean, Tiger King made a sequel with him in jail, and I think personally it was a flop, but who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, story. You said metamorphosis. Another word for metamorphosis is delta, change, right? At its core, regardless of your character's story, is about growth and change, and the more one grows and changes, the more they learn, and that is really how stories evolved as a means of communication among humans. So I think it's about what kind of delta there might be. And I jokingly, talk about jail because it's a big delta, right? But it's also, going to number one. If Hex were to one day become number one, or like the different things that could happen, but you need that delta. It's not just a follow along, kind of thing without something big changing or happening that would warrant then another. Now, that's not just Richard. I mean, most people watch this film and, truth be told, Mikey and Rami are who they most emotionally connect with, and RG and Big K. And, they let you in a different way. Richard's not often vulnerable. And so, there are different characters and they will also experience change in coming years. So I think it's monitoring that and really seeing how this goes over.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's going well. I mean, a number of these theaters have sold out. You've extended days. Let's talk about that theatrical release, and let's talk about there's a lot of people that I've been talking to in the community who are looking to get there early, hang out with folks, stay late afterwards, go somewhere, kind of planning events around the release. Tell us about that process and what people can do. And obviously there's a lot of excitement around this, and we want to everyone sees a benefit in this. In coming around and supporting this release, at least in the United States. What's the plan, and are you encouraged by the results so far?
Oh, very much so. I think that one of the things that we recognize is that Regal took a risk in inviting us in partnership in order to do this. And I know that that the support for an interest in the movie has blown their hair back. Because, generally speaking, it wouldn't be their practice to offer sales this many days in advance of, being able to show something online. That you'll see that when you start looking out at other movies that far out in advance, like, August 4th for a lot of these other theaters, there's no other movie listed as available that day because they don't know what else they're going to show then, right? So they don't generally do that. And I think that they were really surprised by the level of support that this film has upon its immediate publication. That like, hey, dates are available. And then within 24 hours, there was a whole request of additional cities that were made, and Regal said yes immediately. Wow. With open arms and said, yeah, let's make this thing happen. Like, we recognize and are interested in creating the opportunity for this thing to get out in partnership with us. So that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just building on that, and what I want everybody to realize is like there are a lot of people internationally that want to see this.
Yes.
Regal's parent company has chains internationally.
Good.
How do we motivate Regal to engage them? Well, guess what? It's demand and sales, right? Like this is where it goes beyond just you going for yourself. And like, I can see Freddie quotes in the chat box, like how few tickets he has left. And thank you, Freddie, for doing an amazing job as a premier host. Everybody who's a host and everybody who's a community member, it's getting as many people as you can to all, like the more we can push ticket sales here, we do have a legitimate shot at going international, right? That is in everybody's best interest, but we have to demonstrate demand here first. We have to make it so that it's a very low risk for them to go, okay, let us look at over here. How do we bring this across the pond? How do we also do this? But we absolutely would love that. And that is realistic if the community continues to push and spread and looks at some of the markets that, are a little bit smaller right now. And we got to come together. We need to get premier hosts. We need to be, going offline, finding groups that would really be interested in coming and finding ways to get people to actually show up to the theater.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. We've seen many things throughout the years where Hexicans have come together to support something. We saw this with the NASCAR event. I think it was like 10 days and $600,000, was paid. I look at the amount of a ticket and I think about what people have invested in. And because we're all in this together, I think, there are a number of people, and we saw this recently with the Sound of Freedom movie, where people bought out the theaters or bought all remaining tickets and then gave it to friends and family. What do you think about that strategy of folks saying, hey, we've got to come alongside this? When I think of one theater, I was just doing the math on 25 theaters. It's really not that much money. But the kind of, making sure that every single one of these new theaters and all of the days are sold out. Is that something that you would welcome? People are saying, hey, well, I'll buy the rest of these and I'll give them out to friends versus just telling friends about it.
I think the challenge is we need to make sure people are there, right? Sure. And the perceived value of free is actually not good. Like, so we have to, what we don't want to do is buy out a theater because we do the math and that's not a big deal. And then there's only 10 people there because one of the biggest things we need is free to see it and then tell people organically because you can't not talk about it. So if we were to have 15 theaters that are sold out, there's no chance that they're going to sell it the next night or stay for weeks, because it's not spreading. So love the idea. We continue to work through the mechanics. And this is something Kinetics has brought up to us and Quattro around like, how do we support people in buying and giving out tickets? And we're trying to figure that out, right? So that there's a way so that perceived value stays high and that people actually show up and fill up the theaters because this isn't just the 4th and 5th. Like this can continue to hold over and go. So I think that's one thing. And then, we're starting with billboards and seeing how that performs. We've got one in Miami. But certainly, the best billboard in North America is in Hollywood, right down the road from all the streamers. And wouldn't it be nice if, the streamers are seeing this movie that, that kind of thing, and it's sold out and, all of that. You start putting all those dots together and you're making a very compelling argument for a better launch on streaming. So there are big things like that that the community can help with. And then there's the grassroots of get as many people as you can to actually show up.
Well, let's say there's somebody out there who wants to make a bigger investment, right? They don't know what to do. They thought maybe I'd buy out a theater. How does somebody get in contact with you if they want to make a bigger investment in promoting the film?
I mean, the best way is you can email us or you can hit us up on Telegram, and you would talk with Caitlin, who's our lead producer and runs all of the PR. But like we have basically media plans and exactly what you'd be doing, right? And what I want to be super clear on here is that there would be nothing going to Muse. Like this is not in any way anything that anybody wanted to do would be 100% you were covering dollar for dollar what that billboard costs or what these bus ads cost or anything else like that, right? Like this is just about covering the costs to be able to spread that out in different cities or in different markets where, Hollywood, where we just want all of the streamers, all of the networks to go, we got to get that first. So, I mean, Kinetics, everybody knows, and you can reach out to him and he'll put you in touch. You can email us or you can telegram us directly. And the big thing is we have a lot of information. Like we can show you exact locations and price points. And like, this is not a, cross your fingers and, we'll show you the plan and you can decide how you want to support.
Okay. Well, I just encourage, I know there's a lot of folks who they really want to see this film get out as much as you guys do. And sometimes they just don't have a handle to grab onto. And so I appreciate you giving them that opportunity. Grant, you said on Rags' stream that there was kind of a small, medium, and large way to go in and support this film. Do you mind kind of sharing that for folks on how they can come around and support?
Yeah. And I'll echo Patrick's thoughts here. The first of which is just attend, right? Attend and bring somebody. The larger is to bring a large group of people that you would want to share this with. And I think that there's real strength in making sure that we're encouraging people to think more broadly than the pre-existing crypto community, right? That we're, in my specific example, it's, wanting my mom to be exposed to this story, wanting my boys to be exposed to this story. And that's always been the litmus test of whether this film is successful or not, is how many of those people can we reach that have never, that aren't introduced into the world of cryptocurrency at the moment. And then that third tier is the one that Patrick just spoke about in specificity, which would be to reach out and find out, how you could support the PR in raising awareness that the movie exists, so that large markets are finding interest in that, trade magazines are finding interest in that, and that the theatricality and the release of the movie itself has a newsworthiness as well, because that will create action and opportunity.
Right. Well, let me ask you, this is, a new development, which we've seen with Twitter being purchased by Elon Musk, but we've seen some, and I wouldn't consider this film to fit into this exact category, but, we saw What is a Woman movie that was not going to be shared anywhere, shared in 70 million views. We've seen the likes of Tucker Carlson now going out on Twitter. We've seen other films looking at doing releases on Twitter. What are your thoughts, obviously, as you get through these releases and you look at other ways of distributing this? Is there, are you considering kind of those different models as far as distribution to get more eyeballs on something?
Yeah, I think what I would remind everybody of is that as the crypto market crashed and went into a bear market, as did many other markets, right? We know the stock market, we know real estate. Well, guess what? Streamers did too. Right. And so what that meant was and you're seeing a lot of layoffs in tech. So that meant a lot of reorganization, a lot of shifting departments, and, prices dropping. Not the best time to be trying to get, a significant distribution package and marketing kind of thing. And so what we're looking at here is bringing it to the people, proving demand, mitigating risk on behalf of a streamer to get a larger marketing deal. Right. So it's much more about that. And inside of that, we will absolutely consider all different channels, but it's about eyeballs and exposure. It's never been about can we get the largest check or this or that, because that was never the goal. And that is not why we set out to make this. We believe that there's a bigger story than Richard and Hex here. And that is about crypto and where our world's going. And we believe that Richard and Hex are a wonderful way into that world. And the debate, the conflict, all of that just makes it so gripping and entertaining. But we want to reach people and have them, encourage them to learn more about the space more broadly.
Well, one of the things I think is a bit of an elephant in the room is that usually your stars of films go out on promotional campaigns. And Richard's been really quiet for over a year now. We know that there's been this transition. Is there any, potential that Richard would, if he were to do some of the big crypto shows and be able to talk about the film? I would think that, we thought with the launch of the Pulse Chain that we would see Richard on BitBoy, or we'd see him on, some of these bigger shows like Crypto Banter and such. I would think that would be a huge way to promote the film. Any chance that could happen?
I think out of respect for our confidentiality agreements with Richard, we shouldn't speculate on what he will or won't do. We are still in regular touch with him, but I think that any of his rationale is probably not something that we should be sharing about here.
Yeah,
and I think that if he wants to disclose his plans and when he will or won't do things, he obviously has the channels to do that.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective in our community, we always love seeing him. And so anytime we get a chance to hear from him, and would love obviously any promotion he could do for the film as well. So if Richard, you're watching, we'd love to see you again as soon as humanly possible, but we understand the dynamics that are here. Well, guys, I really appreciate all that you've done. Number one, I really think that, when you think about somebody saying, hey, I'll make a movie about that, or I'll do something, you don't really know what to expect. And I think you guys have absolutely knocked it out of the park. And what I love most about this community is the authenticity. And it's almost like, you guys are part of the family, because I've been watching everything that you guys have put out. Can you speak to this community of people? What have you recognized about them? How is this unique? I've seen many things over the years, but you came into this and kind of met these Hexicans and all that. How would you characterize this community, and what has it meant to you, or how has it impacted you guys?
The community has been fantastic from the very first moment. I think that we share in common a passion for the things that interest us most. Right, that we love story in the same level, and that the Hexicans love Hex and Richard and the entire community and ecosystem. And there was a willingness to be vulnerable to what you guys were experiencing, and and welcoming us in to be a part of that. And often that's one of the largest challenges that we face as storytellers is a willing, finding others who are willing to be vulnerable to what it is that they're experiencing. The support that the community has provided us has been unmatched. I think that we appreciate the willingness to invite us in and understand the position that we're in, because while we do feel that you have treated us like family, that we are storytellers, and that there's a responsibility to that. And so it just feels it's very, I'm full of gratitude is the way that I could best express that.
Very good. Very good. Well, where do people get, well, obviously they can go to the Telegram, and I think that's the main way that people would get in contact with you guys, I would assume. But I've been watching, you've got some other projects in the pipeline, and I loved, by the way, the cross promotion with, I guess it's Burrito on the
Romero Brito, yes.
Amazing story there as well. So I'm impressed with you guys. Thanks for going this distance and telling this story, because it's a huge differentiator for our community. We appreciate all of your work and the excellence.
You're saying every token doesn't have a feature-length documentary on them? Is that
not yet, but maybe keep going, guys. Right? This is definitely
there's only one Richard Hart, my friend.
That's right.
You need a character at that level to make a space this complex interesting to people. So we I won't say lucked out, but we chose wisely, and appreciate Quattro and the community for, bringing us this story and inviting us in, because it is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, I know you guys have to jump off. I just wanted to, I know there's a number of people who've made a big difference in the community, especially when I saw that you rebuilt Big K's grandmother's basement, which was fantastic. But Big K and RG3 and Kinetics and
Obi-Wan, the Overwatch team, and a lot of community members, Freddie and so many people have invited us into their spaces and what they're doing. Johnny Chaos, like Hexologists, like so many people in and around production, like they really were helpful in not just giving us time and access, but would also answer our questions and would just be there to help us understand, because we have to understand if we're going to, tell a strong story. And that's been amazing. How open and accepting, and just it's okay. Ask the one-on-one questions, make sure you get it. Here's another perspective. And we can, try something else. So there's been so many community members who have really given us time and space on and off camera. And I just wish that we could include everybody in the final film. You only got a 90-minute movie and we filmed with hundreds of people. And honestly, one of the hardest things is not everybody's going to make it. That is very hard for us, because you feel so much for everybody that they gave so much of themselves. But at the end of the day, bigger picture, bigger goal, got to make the best story. You got to make the cuts where you got to make them, so that, this gets watched and shared. So,
yeah. Well, my final question, probably the most important question I could possibly ask, is I know that you had said that you had Brandon from Rags to Riches in the film pretty prominently, but was it true that the color correction, you couldn't get it right on the Cheeto beard? Was that the issue?
I mean, I think we had to cut it because both colorists quit because they could not get anywhere close, and then he wouldn't. Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was rough.
Yeah, I
Very
understand
nice
that.
guy.
Well, guys,
Otherwise,
yeah, it's so good, guys. Thanks for being on this, and thanks for doing all that you do. And we're ecstatic to go and see the film, and so thanks for taking your time to be on the Pulse today.
thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Appreciate your
All
time.
right, guys, we'll catch you in a bit.
Have a good one.
Folks, Patrick and Grant from the Highest of Stakes, incredible. Folks, like they said at the end, you know what other founder, what other cryptocurrency has a feature length, high quality documentary film about their community? And so, I don't know what the film looks like. I just know from the trailer and what I've seen there, but it's this is done with excellence. And folks, that's rare that people would hang out of a helicopter like was done and do the things that they would. It really fits who Richard is. So folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt, and take care of yourself and do not mess with Brandon. Take care, everybody.